What is 0 over 0? Some people will say it's 0, some will say it's 1, and some may even say it's infinity. In this video, I will explain the correct answer to this problem. But the real reason I made this video is to debunk a huge misconception that has been circulating the internet for years. It is that the answer is indeterminate. You might be wondering why I think it's such a huge problem, since only a third of people believe it. Well, even that in itself is an issue. But the bigger problem is the reasoning behind the misconception. Almost every single person who does end up with the right answer uses the same incorrect reasoning. Right answer, wrong reasoning. That's the problem. Before I debunk this misconception, or rather the reasoning behind it, I will briefly explain why the answer isn't 0, 1, or infinity. Why some people think it's 0 is because they are using the rule 0 over anything is 0. However, this is incorrect because this rule only holds true when the denominator is a non-zero number. We are not allowed to divide by 0. Why some people say it's 1 is because they are using the rule anything divided by itself is 1. This is also wrong because this rule does not apply here. Again, we are not allowed to divide by 0. Some people think that the real answer is infinity because they will say that any number divided by 0 is infinity. But this rule isn't entirely true even when the numerator is non-zero. Sure, when you take the limit of any number, let's call it h, over x, as x approaches 0, you get infinity. But this only applies if h is not equal to 0. And even still, taking the limit of an expression is not the same as the expression itself. So this reasoning is wrong on multiple levels. Now it's time to talk about the more common misconception. 0 over 0 is indeterminate. Let me first explain why so many people believe that it is indeterminate. They begin with the equation 0 over 0 equals x, where x just represents the number we are trying to find. They then rearrange this equation into 0 equals x times 0, and say that x can be any number, so the value cannot be determined, and it is therefore indeterminate. There is a huge problem with this. When we try to say that 0 over 0 equals x is the same as 0 equals x times 0, we are breaking one of the most fundamental mathematical rules, the rule that says division is the inverse of multiplication. In mathematical terms, this rule states that if a over b equals c, then a equals b times c, if b is not equal to 0. This is where the root of the issue is. We have used this rule so often with non-zero numbers that we have forgotten that there is a condition. b, the denominator, must be non-zero. But in the equation 0 over 0 equals x, b is 0, so to apply this rule is actually misusing and breaking it, which makes the proof and the conclusion both incorrect, and also proves that 0 over 0 is not indeterminate. What I have just said may seem to contradict what your calculus prof told you in school. 0 over 0 is indeterminate and needs more work. However, this only applies to limits. If you get 0 over 0 while taking a limit, this means that it is of an indeterminate form and needs more work. This is entirely different than saying that the value of an expression is indeterminate. Another issue with trying to use limits to find the value of 0 over 0 is that there are many limits that approach 0 over 0. For example, x over x, 0 over x, and x over 0 all approach 0 over 0, but they all have different answers. The limit of x over x as x approaches 0 is equal to 1. The limit of 0 over x as x approaches 0 is 0. And the limit of x over 0 as x approaches 0 does not exist. It diverges because it approaches infinity. So all of these limits approach 0 over 0, but they all have different solutions. Confusing, right? So then what does 0 over 0 really equal? Well, the right answer is pretty boring, actually. 0 over 0 has no clear, consistent meaning. So just like all mathematical expressions that have no clear, consistent meaning, we call it undefined. This means that it basically has no meaning and can't be solved. To clear things up a bit, I'll explain the difference between undefined and indeterminate. Undefined means that an expression has no meaning, and indeterminate means that there is no single exact value that can be determined. You might want to think about it the intuitive way. Actually, you definitely want to think about it the intuitive way. How many times does nothing go into nothing? Well, you can try and think about it as much as you want, but you will never get a solution. Why? Because the question itself has no meaning. It doesn't make sense. Or you can think about it this way. Pretend for a minute that you are Mr. Beast. You have 50 Lamborghinis and you have 5 friends. So each friend gets 10 Lamborghinis. Now imagine you are me. You have 0 Lamborghinis and 0 friends. How many Lamborghinis does each friend get? Well, I hope you can see now why mathematicians just leave it undefined. The crazy thing about the misconception I talked about is that almost every single site and YouTube video have used this wrong explanation. Even if they arrive at the right answer, it is usually only because they are using indeterminate and undefined interchangeably. There are very few who have realized the error of this misconception. I highly recommend Bry the Math Guy. He also has a great video on the truth about 0 over 0. I hope this video helped you to understand why this common explanation is actually wrong. And please share this video so that other people can too. I will be producing more content like this very soon, so please hit that subscribe button right here or here. Also, feel free to share your opinion in the comments or to give any suggestions of a problem you want me to cover next. Thanks for watching.